Hey guys, Sir Kirk here with a special video that I have for you guys. So I finished 3 videos on my interpretation on some weapons that can be found in the Dark Souls series, but I realized that I've been using a lot of terminology for the different stances and guards that I've been taking through that video, so I decided to make this little video here to kind of demonstrate the different stances and guards to kind of like show and highlight how they look. So when viewing this, I kind of show how the stance looks from both the right and the left side of the body, as well as how it would look if you were seeing it from different angles. And I just go over some basic stances and guard that I would commonly see or I would commonly use when fighting with all these different weapons. So in the first part, you're going to see me using a long sword. Then you're going to see me using a two-handed spear or halberd. And you're going to see me using an arming sword and a shield. And yeah. But what's really cool about these stances is that, even though you use different weapon sets and different types of things, you can actually apply, slight modification. You could basically apply the same stances to different things. So the same principles really are there. So if you know how to use one, I'm not saying it automatically translates to use of the others, but having a basic understanding of stances and what type of attacks or what type of defense you can do from them will translate with practically any melee weapon that you find. So, you might have to modify some stances or some ways you perform certain attacks, but really the fundamentals are there for anything you pick up. So, yeah, I really make this kind of help illustrate these different stances. So, for, in reference for my previous videos, as well as for referring to any future videos I have. So, this will be kind of like this thing I have. So, the big thing when it comes to, HEMA, as well as I should say martial arts in general, is the fact that you really have to constantly train and you have to constantly put yourself in situations where, your body will react naturally to this. So if I, for example, were in a dangerous situation, the whole intent of me training these types of drills would be so I'd automatically get into stances like this to defend myself and to basically ward off any threats. So when doing HEMA, as well as with any martial arts, the important fact is to drill and work on it. You can't just do a skill or a stance or anything really. You can't just do it once and think you're going to be fine. You have to drill it and constantly work on it. And even then, what I've noticed is even when doing this is that sometimes if I do a technique wrong or I practice it in an inefficient manner, when I take it to duels at my gym or when just practicing with buddies, if I find it doesn't work out, then I have to see what went wrong and have to modify it in order to improve what I do. So for example, in the guards that I'm showing right here, so the ox and the hanging guards, which you just guys saw, initially I had some of the most trouble using those guards because initially the way I would block, if I wasn't blocking high enough or if my fingers were too close to the cross guard, I would oftentimes get my fingers and my knuckles nicked. So I realized that the best way to deal with this is to position your hand so your thumb goes across the center of the crossguard while your fingers are a little bit back, and you have to pull your sword up a bit higher in order so you don't lose your fingers, essentially. But it's little things like that you have to worry about correcting and modifying and, just improving on. But yeah, here, as I explained, I moved to different weapons, so ignore the fact that I have a Spartan shield here. Just this thing's been through a lot. People have thrown this thing around. This thing's been hit by arrows. This thing's been beaten and battered. It's definitely worn down. And looking at the color, it looks much more dull, like a dull gold compared to how it was, kind of like that bronzy gold look. But yeah, this thing is definitely not as in top shape as it used to be. But one thing that I want to emphasize with using a shield, since, at least with bigger shields like this, you're a bit more limited in where you can position your sword because the shield can be in the way sometimes. So most of the stances I use are kind of from just one side. versus like with, say, a longsword where I can do from both. But there's some stances like you see right here where you can start on the opposite side, but not really too much, especially with these big shields. But with smaller shields, is a bit more it's a bit more easy to maneuver it. But it's a lot of cool things. The fact that I take the same types of stances that I learned in my class and in the books and apply it to other things, and I think it's pretty functional, pretty useful. But with stances like these, I mean, honestly, the best thing is to get comfortable with it. Like, stand in a position where you feel like you can be able to attack and you can move in and out or to the side very quickly. So, yeah, just do something that you feel is very practical. Now we're moving on to, I'm just going to call this either a two-handed spear, a club, halberd, polearm, whatever. And really, it's kind of very similar to when wielding a two-handed sword. A lot of different areas where I can hold it to use as guards and stuff. But I think the big difference with this is that because I have a much wider range to hold the weapon, I feel much more comfortable with switching hands when I'm in different sides. So that's what you're also noticing when I'm doing this. But I feel like with polearms, I think with optimizing just how you fight, I think polearms are probably one of the most versatile weapons, because not only can you switch with your hands very easily and you have the range, but you also, especially with like some halberd stuff, you also have a lot of power and a lot of different heads that you can use. So with a halberd you might have a thrusting head, you might have an axe head, you might have like a blunt hammer head. So it's just all these different things you can do to counter different opponents. But also, with this type of way that I'm using it, also if you had a great sword, so like Zweihanders and stuff like that, a lot of these stances apply to how you would use them in that sense. So there's a lot of similarities, and even in my video about Zweihanders, I did mention that the way that you would use them actually bears a lot more resemblance to how you would fight with a halberd versus actually using it with a sword. But for me personally, I'm not too experienced with halberd combat. I mean, I want to get more experience with it because my main expertise is like longsword and stuff like that. But, from being in this class and like watching other people, looking at manuals and just kind of practicing stuff in real life, I'm kind of learning it. But, I definitely want to improve on my skill for going to the future. So when I make future videos about different topics. So yeah, there's that. So I'm still, want to do fictional weapon series, and, if I brought in what I can do, then that'll definitely make it easier to do different videos and stuff. But as I promised earlier with the 50 subscriber thing, I'm definitely sooner or later going to get hooked up with my friend who does ninjutsu and stuff like that, and he's going to definitely show me how to wield dual katanas. Now that's another thing. I don't go over like dual stances in this video. I just do I suppose single weapon, or I guess you can say shield and stuff, but yeah, I don't really do dual weapons like two swords or a dagger sword or what have you, because I definitely am not experienced with it. I mean, I know that you can use both weapons to attack and stuff like that, but personally I would treat the offhand weapon, so the one in my left hand, I would use that more or less as a defensive tool and not use it for offense. But, I feel like with dual wielding, I feel like that's probably the best way to look at it. But I also know, you need to be able, to say, do it with the reverse. So say your main hand can be used for deflection, while your offhand should, you should be able to attack with that. So I think that's something I need to work on. But here for this part, it's just kind of me switching between stances and kind of seeing which ones flow naturally into each other. So, definitely when it comes to HEMA or just martial arts and sword fighting in general, the best thing to do is, being able to move between stances very effectively, very efficiently in order to, confuse your opponents, or to, make them think oh, well, they're going to come and attack from here, but you can switch. Also, I think this is just a big thing when it comes to movies and games, the idea of, over swinging and just being ridiculous with your attacks. really the only thing I can think of to say about that is simply when you do attacks and when you try to strike, just try to go back into a guard. Like, go in a position where you can defend yourself. So say do a strike, move your weapon after the strike in a position where if the opponent tries to counter you or tries to hit you at the same time, you can basically parry them or block while you get an attack. And that's honestly the principle with most martial arts I've noticed is if you are going for an attack, the best thing is to make sure you're defended. And with a shield, it's definitely much easier because you can use the shield to move weapons out of the way. You can do a lot of stuff with a shield, but when you only have one weapon, like a halberd or a greatsword or a longsword, then, since you don't really have the shield to help defend you, you basically, need to have the capacity to defend yourself with that weapon. So, it kind of acts like your shield in a way, even though it's just one weapon. But, if you were to ask me personally, I think, my favorite ways of fighting would probably be with two-handed weapons. Because, it's a bit more difficult to use them, but it's also a bit more, I feel like it's a bit more variety, a bit more fun with it, versus with like a shield, how I just feel kind of limited by my offhand and what I can do with it. But, there's merit to every way, like all the weapon sets that you would have, because looking historically, most of the time on Battlefield, most of the time people had shields and either a spear or sword or whatever one-handed weapon that you have. They basically serve your one-handed weapon. You basically can do similar things with, like, swords, axes, what have you, and then spears. But two-handed weapons I think are most fun for me, but that's just my opinion. But there is, like I said, there is merit to understanding just how to work with different weapons. So if you were to get in different scenarios and just knowing that. So this is just me doing the stances to kind of just show you different stuff. But I might do videos just demonstrating attacks and stuff like that, realistic setting. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave this here for now. So, yeah, since I was being very serious earlier with all these different stances and how to properly do that, I guess I'll decide to end this video with just being ridiculous. And I just tired myself out and just doing all this crazy stuff with these different weapons. I took some inspiration from movies and games with some of these, so if you want to try to guess where these moves are coming from, you can do so. But I mean, I'm just having fun. But surprisingly, what's sad about all this is that when I'm doing all this ineffective stuff in like combat with these types of weapons, sadly, I get very tired, and it's extraordinarily tiring. In fact, it's much more efficient to be practical in how you swing and how you fight, because it's much more like stamina efficient, like doing all these leaps and twirls and all that. I mean, it's not really all that helpful. I mean, not only are you risking yourself getting killed, but the amount of force and exertion you did put off to do this type of thing, it's not really worth it in the end. I mean, I guess you can say, well, you can generate more power when you do stuff like this, which, I mean, okay, you can generate a lot of power by simply doing normal things. Like, it doesn't require all that much effort or force to kill somebody. As long as you're efficient and you target the weak spots or target a spot that you can take out, then it shouldn't be really too hard to deal with it. Also, if you think about it, a lot of the combat styles that I really study with my art, it's mostly pertaining to battlefield types of scenarios where it's not just you fighting one person, it's also you fighting, a large group of people, while you also have a large group of people on your side. So what's the point of, over swinging or just doing all these spins and stuff if you could potentially damage your comrades or kill them? And also, even if you kill one person in front of you with this super matrix flip nonsense, then there's going to be like 3 to 5 guys next to that guy you just struck down who is immediately just going to punish you for that. So there's really no point in doing all this. Honestly, be practical, be safe, and just don't hurt your allies, really. But, I mean, I feel like doing historical stuff, it can be cool, can be interesting, but I don't know, movies want us to believe that all these fantasy flips and stuff is where you go. I mean, it's fun to reenact and it's fun to pretend you can do it, but yeah, it's no, don't try to do this stuff in real life because it's not gonna end well. But yeah, stay tuned, guys, though, because I'm gonna be coming out with my For Honor videos. I'm gonna start off with Warden and Highlander. So yeah, I'm gonna review their movesets and replicate that. So you guys have that to look forward to. So anyway, like, subscribe, leave a comment, turn on notifications, do all that jazz, and yeah, you'll see more from me, and I'll be doing all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope this video was able to help you with your journey in learning about HEMA, and I hope you guys can practice some of the stuff. Anyway, peace out.